Welcome back to DasGeek. This is video number 2 of our Lightworks tutorial. So if you haven't watched the first video, which explains the interface, you may get lost. Or if you already know the interface and you just want some quick tips and tricks, hopefully this video helps. Again, this is created for one of the patrons who get a say in the next videos that I work on. So hopefully this is helping them out tremendously here. So what we did in the first video is we just moved one of my beginning sequences into our timeline here, and we basically showed around the interface. But now we're going to start getting into some of the editing, actually cutting and snapping and importing, doing some basic cuts, etc. of content here. So the first thing I want to do is bring in some more content. So if I double click it, you remember that's going to bring it up here in our preview window. And I can play here and I can select sections that I want to include into the clip down here in my actual timeline. But if I don't want to edit in this section, then what I can do is I can actually, what I did when I first started especially, is I would just take this video clip and drag it down here and do my edits from this point. And you can see when I'm dragging a sequence in, I am simply just clicking and holding and dragging it down, and then it's automatically snapping to the closest, the last sequence, the end of the last clip that I have on my timeline. So I can have a gap here if I wanted to include something else, but this is a very nice magnet feature snap here to bring in your videos, and I can edit directly here from the timeline as well. Either way works. It really depends on the complexity of the video that you're working on. So what I noticed in this video here, if I go through, there's a lot of gap between me actually entering in the command to install the software that I want to show here in this video, and I want to get all of that removed out. So what you can do in this main sequence window, if you're editing from here, is you can hit the F12 key, and you're not going to be able to see this in a video, but what that does is gives me a full screen preview on my second monitor of this sequence here. So you can see it's kind of hard to see the text in this view because the screen's kind of small. We can try to adjust the timeline down, give some more space, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of room here. We could also get rid of our previewer, and that's going to give us a little better view in there. And of course, if you want that back, you just double click on one of the scenes and that will come right back. But we can try to edit from here. We can do a full screen on a second monitor if you have one, which is going to make it easier. But I just want to remove this space in between typing the command here. So let's see, from this point. So what we're going to do is if I hit the A key, that's going to bring me to the beginning of the clip, or the last cut basically. So if I hit the S key, that's going to bring me to the end. But you can see I have the two clips moved in here. And if I want to move, if I hit S, I'm going to move to that first cut sequence right there, which is the beginning of this new clip. And I can move my timeline to where I want to start this. And really, I just want people to see the end result here. So I'll let them see kind of a little bit of the last text because the installation point isn't too important. So I'm going to go ahead on here and do a mark out. And then I'm going to hit A to go to the beginning and mark in. Now, the other way to do this is I could manually move slider here to the point where I want to actually make my edit, but that could be inefficient in that you could be cutting or not getting truly to the end, or you could end up cutting into the other clip if you don't get it perfect. So just remember A and S is going to move you between your different points in your video. And here, because I did a mark in and mark out, it's actually, if I hit A and S and toggle back between those, as you can see up here, it's actually going to move between those two markers. So now that I have the section that I want cut out, I have some options here. I can remove the marked section and replace it with black, which means it's not going to automatically snap it back. And this would be great if I want to move something else into its place. I can undo that, however, if I don't want to make that cut, and I can say delete the marked section and close the gap. And now what I've done is I've deleted that section and it's automatically resnapped it to the last clip that I have added in here. And now we can see we've got that edit. So now it's showing them the full command to install the screen copy tool. And they don't really need to see all of the package editing and install process going through here, because that's going to be, boring and nobody cares. We just want to get that command in. And so I do want some space to leave in here for me talking, because, I've got a gift for talking too much. So I'm going to go ahead and mark at that point and get to a important piece here as I'm scrubbing through this video that I want people to see, and probably when it's completely finished installing. Here we go. So, and I may not use any more of this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the section out and snap it back. And what this is going to then do is, and we'll work on transitions to show you some transitions if you don't like hard cuts. But right now it's kind of going to do a hard cut to it being completed, and then me typing in command to launch the tool here, which I have no idea why it took me so long to type in that command. So I'm going to go ahead and do a mark out here. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to do a mark in, and I'm going to remove that whole section there. So now people think I'm really smart because it's going to go much faster. SCR CPY gets put in there, and why am I just sitting there? Oh, because I hadn't plugged in my phone yet, you see? Because you could see the Samsung profiler jumping up there. So I hadn't plugged in my phone, which is why I wasn't hitting enter there. So now I'm going to probably want to cut all of this out. So I'm going to go ahead and go back, mark this, and then scrub to where we see the phone come in. And at some point, I'm probably powering up the phone, and I'm going to hit enter here. And I think the phone was out of battery on top of it. And we did get an error here, and that error was because I hadn't unlocked my phone yet. So we don't need to show that in the video. Let's get to the point where we actually launch the screen copy tool. And boy, we have a lot of space where nothing happened. All right, so finally I'm at a point where I've gotten the phone charged and I was able to launch the application. So I should have a good mark in and mark out point, I believe, if I go back. So there's my mark in, there's my mark out. And you can see I use the zoom in and zoom out buttons here to be able to see more of my real estate at one time. And I'm going to go ahead and delete and close that gap. So now we've got a much shorter video here out of this clip, and you can see me doing the install. Then you get to see me immediately launching the application here. Now there's some information as I'm flipping through some of these screens that I don't want people to see. For instance, in one screen in the settings, it shows my phone number and things like that. So you won't even get to see that here because I'm going to cut that out. But those are things that I'm going to go in here and edit. So you can see the screen mirroring tool is now mirroring my cell phone on here. It's a really cool application. But there are some other things I need to show besides the installation, such as some of the settings that you need to have done on your phone. And that's why I'll be bringing in things like screenshots here. And also, of course, when I'm done, I've got to add an ending clip in. And this is more information on the tool itself, which I want to fit in somewhere as well. So overall, this will be a pretty short video, but we're going to add some transitions and effects in here. And at the end of it, you'll know how to edit your own videos and the basics that I know myself. Okay, so one of the things that you may want to do as I was clipping through this video is you may just want to make a hard cut. You may not want to mark in and mark out and, remove a section. You just want to cut so you can move this clip around or make a space in between. To do that, you're just going to hit the C button here. If you hit C, you can see it's made a cut and I can move this around. So C is your option if you want to make a cut and you don't want to use the mark in and mark out. Although almost 99.9% of the time I'm using a mark in, mark out function, and this is your button to clear any of your marks that you have in. So if I mark here and I decide, oh, I don't want that mark, I can just hit that middle diamond there and that will clear any of the marks that I have out. So I've got a pretty good cut here. This won't be the final product because I don't know how much of this space I can actually talk through. I'll have to do some renditions on it. But right now what I'm going to do is zoom out a little bit and I'm going to get ready to move this clip in. So to do that, I want to preview this clip first to see what information in here is actually useful. And I double clicked on that within my files, and now I can scrub it here before moving it down into my timeline. Now what I want to do is get my marker here at the very end. So if I was here, I'm just hitting the S button, and you can see that's moving my marker to the very end. So that way, when I've got the section of this that I want, I'm going to show you a little trick of how we can mark in and mark out here and just dump it right there at the end section. So what I'm realizing here is this clip actually should be first, because this is showing you about the tool here, the STRCPY tool. And instead of just going straight to the install, I kind of want to show this part of the clip before I show the installation and everything else. So what we can do to accomplish this is I can move where I want this video to go, which is going to be in front of this one. I can mark the sections that I want to include. So I'm going to start here, and then we're going to go all the way to, we don't want that section in. I'm going to go all the way to the end where I scroll back up. And so what I'm going to do now that I've marked these two sections within this clip itself, I'm going to now replace into the target sequence or insert into. So if I replace, it's going to put that and remove what was there before it or after it. And what I want to do instead in this case is insert it into the target sequence. So now I should have that beginning area, which I do have here. We need to shrink our timeline so we can see it better. Now we have that beginning clip that I wanted. So it's starting here, and then it's going to move into the installation process and to the end. So I'm going to hit S here because the next section, I'm going to clear the marks here because I know there is a point in this video that I was shooting here where there was some information that would make for a good closure of this, where I was playing with showing the settings of how to get the debug mode into your phone. So here's the section here, and you can see that I have captured this little segment here that I'm going to add to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this into the target sequence because that's the section I want. And you can see it added it here at the end. And I think there's one more section in here. And the reason why I had to cut around here is because at a certain point it was showing information on my phone number and stuff like that. And I don't want to give that information away. I just want to give steps on how you get your phone set up to utilize with this software. So the first thing we do is get developer mode turned on. And then the second thing we do is the debugging. So let's check that out next. So here's where I do the debugging. So I'm going to mark this in, and then we're going to go down to the USB debugging section there, which you can see. And we've got everything we want now here. So I'm going to mark that out, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert into the target sequence. So now if I go into my main viewer, I'm going to see the demo, and then I'm going to show the phone being set up here and how that works. But now I'm thinking, you know, this really needs to be at the beginning as well, right after the installation. So now I need to move these clips that I've just made here. I need to move them into a different section. I want to put these right after I kind of talk about the tool itself and right after this installation process. So we're going to do the install, then I'm going to show the phones, and then we will be able to move on to actually demoing the product itself. So to add in the clip, to add in some space here to make for the clip, what I'm going to do, because I want to move these over, and there may be an easier way to do this, but I'm not familiar with one. So if you know, let me know in the comments below. But what I'm going to do is put my cursor here using A at the cut point where I want to insert it. And I'm just going to open up a clip and insert into target sequence. Now I know I don't want that clip. So now I can go back and select it and remove it. So now I have the blank space that I need to be able to move this clip in first. And then I can go to the end and I can do the same thing again. Insert into target sequence so that I have enough space, and then I can remove this, delete it out. Oops, did the wrong delete there. I can remove it, And so now I have my beginning to show how to set up on the phone. And now I can move this clip in and I can close the gap. So that's the easiest way I've found to make space. I've seen other tutorials out there that talk about being able to move these. I think there is a way to do it, but I've just not found the keyboard shortcut to be able to nudge it over. So I just insert a clip and then remove that clip so it has that black space, and then move the clips where I want them, and accomplishes the same goal. So now what we have is we have our beginning sequence. Now we move into showing some information. This is where I can talk about the tool. Then we're going to move into the phone, showing you how to set up your phone and the developer options for your phone. Then we're going to move to installing on your system and then showing off what this tool is capable of doing. So right now we have a pretty good video, except we have no audio in here as well. And that's where I could use the record a voiceover, or I could record the audio separately on Audacity and import it in here. So I prefer to use the record audio option because that's going to allow me to see the pictures as I'm talking about them. And then as I'm going through it, I can remove any extra space or pauses that I have. But right now, let's assume we had audio and everything was ready to go. I just want to add in my end sequence here, and I'm just skipping between endpoints. And that would be my ending right here. So if I double click that, I can preview my ending. And I love it. So I'm going to insert that into the target sequence, and you can see it brings in the audio waveforms. Because there's no audio for these, there's no waveform, but you can see any of the clips that I have audio for. We can see the waveform down there below. And now I'm nearly ready to finish this video out. I have the cuts where I want them to do. We've done some insertions, we've done some cutting, we've done some snapping, all of the basic things that you need to basically get your clips ready to go. And we've inserted media from multiple different spots within this video. So now I'm going to do the voiceover, and then we'll work on some transitions and other things in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, get out there and fill your brains.
Don't forget to subscribe. Watch the video.